This is Look West, a podcast from California's Assembly Democrats.
Hi, welcome to the first in a series of Look West podcast episodes on immigration. I'm Armando Jimenez, one of the Look West producers. With me on this episode is producer Talitha de Mesa. Hi, Talitha.
Hi, Armando.
So, as we all know, immigration is perhaps the most talked about issue right now in California these days. The attacks on immigrants from the new federal administration are causing fear and some concern throughout the state. California Assembly Democrats are pushing back against the administration's immigration overreach.
Thank you, Armando. On this episode of the Look West Immigration Series, Assembly members Juan Carrillo and Jose Luis Solache sat down with us and talked about their personal immigration stories, what rights you need to know, and the work they are doing to help. Armando, you talked with Assemblymember Solache. Tell us a little bit about your chat with him and what the listeners can expect to hear.
Yeah, so I actually had the pleasure of talking to Assemblymember Jose Luis Solache, and he did go into detail a little bit about the Know Your Rights and some resources available just in case for those in need in any situation to better prepare them. So Talitha, what can listeners look forward to in your talk with Assemblymember Carrillo?
Assemblymember Carrillo shared some immigration resources in his district and also busted a few common myths about immigration along the way. He got personal. He opened up about his own family's immigration journey and how that experience pretty much set the stage for everything that followed in his life. Before we hear that conversation with Assemblymember Carrillo, let's hear Armando's conversation with Assemblymember Solache.
I want to introduce you, Assemblymember Jose Luis Solache. I wanted to start a little bit with my family immigration story. Not too much in detail, but both of my parents are immigrants from Mexico. So I do understand, and I do recall when I was younger, some of the struggles that they had to go through to become citizens here for the better life. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your family immigration story and kind of what all that was about?
I think that's part of my pride every day that I always reflect on my family. You know, my family, both my parents are from León, Guanajuato. They both immigrated to this country. And, I have the pleasure of saying that I have both stories. I can acknowledge both, but ultimately to search for a new opportunity. Right,
yeah.
An opportunity to start a new life. My mom was one of 12, meaning that she left everything.
Wow.
In León. My father, I think would say half and half. Most of the men, his brothers were here already or came to this country, where half of his family, including the two women, his sisters, were in León. So he had kind of those both stories, where my mom's full family was in León. So visiting León every year, we went as a family. We drove there to go visit family, and it was like, it was a big ordeal because we didn't live there. So, experiencing las posadas, culture, música, la comida, just ensuring that, that we kept that tradition, those traditions. So to me, that's what being a Mexican American is, having the culture, the experiences, and those are my lived experiences of appreciating my background, my roots. But of course, being a U.S. citizen, I can appreciate both my roots, but also the fact that I was born in this country, and and I thank my parents every single day for those opportunities.
And all that history, like you were saying, that's what makes you who you are as a person. One of the things and topics that is probably around everywhere on TV, news, you see on social media. There's a lot of myths about certain things about immigrants, immigration in general. One of them that stood out to me is the conversation of immigrants don't pay taxes. What are your thoughts? What do you know? Or
I think that is so unfortunate that people believe that the fact that we simply go to the grocery stores, we simply go, to a local mall, and just shop. We are all paying taxes. They're not asking you for papers. They're not asking you for a green card or documentation when you're paying at the grocery store, when you're paying at the counter, when you're buying something, right? So I think that's just as basic as it gets for anyone to say that our undocumented community do not pay taxes. I think that should be a common sense to anyone that, just regular shopping. We get taxed on everything that we get taxed, and everyone pays the same thing, right? In the sense of purchasing. And I want to keep it to that basic because before we get to more of the numbers and the data and statistics, which does exist, that's like the number one thing that I want to highlight. Immigrants pay billions of dollars in taxes each year, including income taxes, property taxes, and sales tax. Again, I highlighted that sales tax from a very organic angle. And it's just sad to see how people would believe that. In California specifically, undocumented immigrants contribute $8.5 billion in taxes to state and local communities. over 1 trillion yearly to the California economy.
Wow.
And that's just California, right? And so for someone to just believe that, I think it's just common sense. Like,
Yeah.
You know, folks are not distinguishing, oh, is that person documented, or, you know, or they born here, or you pay no taxes, or you pay taxes, right?
Correct.
No, we all pay that. And the richness that we bring to this not only state, but to this country and to this, you know, the society in general, of keeping this economy going. And our immigrant community is a big part of that.
I agree. The discussion that we hear of immigrants take away jobs from native-born citizens. We all know that we're hardworking, a lot of different ethnicities and cultures in California and in the U.S. What are your thoughts on the immigrants?
Give you a quick little story. I was a 10th grade student in Washington, D.C., and a trip it was called Presidential Classroom. I was a 10th grader, and the first time I learned the word caucus. What is a caucus, right? And so the idea of a presidential classroom is to visit the monuments, visit the White House, and just the D.C. experience. We were in a setting, maybe a table similar to this, maybe 5, 6 of us, and we're in different groups. And I think that was one of the first time I felt racism and, you know, and attacking to the community I call my community, not only Mexicanos, but Latino. And so this young boy, right, 10th grader, said, you know, those people are taking our jobs, right? The first time I ever heard that from a very organic, and because of my lived experiences of knowing where I come from, and again, the things that we talked about today, my upbringing coming to this country and being part of this country, it just organically happened where a woman was cleaning the table, right? Just here, it was like a restaurant. And I told that young man, I said, is that woman taking your job? Because last time I checked, I don't think you're running to take her job.
Correct.
And so it's a reminder that in that 10th grade story is the exact example today. I don't see people running to the farm to pick our crops. I don't see people, as they're staying at these five-star resorts, you know, going clean the bedding of someone's, you know, that had this grandiose weekend with their partner and their family, or family vacationing, and there's that person that goes and cleans their room, or the nannies or the gardeners. These are the real stories of our community. And so for someone to say that we're taking their jobs, it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, it's sad.
That someone would think that. Now, in contrast to that, I talk about my story because I am living the American dream every single day because my parents gave me that opportunity. And this country has given me that opportunity. I'm here sitting with you in a shirt and a tie, right? And I'm privileged to know that I went to college, but that's what my parents fought for. So I came to this country, I got my education, I worked my ass off, right? Like a lot of our community does. And I say that example because now, yeah, let's compete for the job, right? But now I'm at your level of competition, of being educated, right? So yeah, maybe those jobs, someone can make an argument, but guess what? We're equally U.S. citizens. I was born in this country. I worked my butt off. I went to school. I've paid my dues like anyone else has. And just because of the color of my skin doesn't mean I can't perform equally or better. And that being said, maybe that could be an argument of someone taking their job, right? But guess what? I'm equally prepared. So I could see that argument possibly, but even then, we're equals. So where's the difference? If you don't work yourself hard, because my parents taught me hard work. I work hard, and I work what I have today. Nothing has been given to me, right? And that's also a myth that people think that everything's given to us. No, we work hard, you know? And so for what I have today, I'm privileged, but I also have worked so hard to get to that point. But again, going back to that they're taking our jobs, I think that's unfortunate because I'm sure the person that's doing the gardening or being the nanny, I'm sure they would like to have other opportunities, but sometimes the realities are not there, right?
Correct. And
those experiences are different for everyone. And by the way, my parents taught me that any job is honorable. It doesn't matter if you're cleaning a home, if you're running a home, or you're building a home. Any job is equally important. I remember being the student body president at Dominguez Hills, and I talked to the gardener the same way I talked to the president of the university because to me they both had equal responsible.
They all have worth.
We all have worth, right? Being a school member, that's exactly how we talk to our staff in our school district. You're the superintendent, you're the school principal, the teacher, the classified employee, the custodial staff. You all have a role, right? And that example is, to me, I'm a member of this legislature. I'm one of 80, and I have an equal responsibility to take care of the state. But when I go home, I'm Jose Luis, just like anyone else. And this title that I have is borrowed. It's not mine. It's the people's job. It's the people's title. So, so that being said, I'll let somebody else run for the seat, and they can run for the seat if they want it, but we're going to go at it.
Okay. And then have you noticed or seen any major differences in your district in the communities? How are people reacting? What are some challenges that you guys face right now in your district?
I think as you ask me that question, the first thing I think of is what is happening today in my district, in my community, and the people, the 500,000 people that I represent. And the first word that came to my head is fear. Fear of the uncertainty. What's going to happen? What is happening? And when there's this fear of being brought up at the national level by the person that we are supposed to is supposed to be our leader, and trust to be our leader, there isn't that from some members of my community, or a lot of members of my community, right? And trust comes from things that he's saying, right? Not because there's a political difference of being a Democrat or Republican. It's what you're hearing on TV from his own mouth, And there's one thing about going against folks that are immigrants / undocumented and quote unquote in his words criminals, right? Yeah, I think all of us in society. That's why there's a judicial system, there's a court system, there's jails. That if you commit a crime, you're gonna go to jail, regardless if you're undocumented or not documented,
correct,
or immigrant or not immigrant, right? We all as a society believe that the bad person needs to go to jail, right, or the bad person needs to pay a consequence. There's no debate. But when you're attacking hard-working community, people that look like me, that happen to have one thing it's called not documents, that separate us by that one fact, there's fear. There is definitely fear. And so it's unfortunate because this is my 5th week on the legislature, and I came thinking we're going to start creating some legislation, some bills, which we will for sure. But we had to pivot. Right? I mean, the fires that happened in our backyard and our neighboring Los Angeles, to the new administration coming in and just the fear that my community has. And so I think as a state representative, I have a duty to be a voice for our community. And that's why, and we're going to get into some of the things that the Latino Caucus has done to be the voice for our community statewide. Things that my office is doing to make sure that we are being a voice for our community and our district, and ultimately the state of California. I've had people that say, what happens if I go to work? And what about if ICE is around?
Correct.
Those are real fears. And it's so sad that people have those type of fears. I mean, the fear should be different.
Or the fear of your children going to school, like mothers.
Right, or leaving their child in child care. And what if, the child's not there anymore when you pick up the kids? Or let's call it a place of worship. So when you go worship, and something that I think equally Republicans and Democrats feel that we should have free spaces of people worship, but maybe not for undocumented people, right?
It should be a safe haven.
It should be a safe haven, 100%. And the fact that they're not, so that those are the examples that I'm talking about, the fear that our community is feeling, because you're hearing it from his mouth. It's not even the media, it's his own words.
Yeah, and along with the fear, the sadness, the devastation of families that have already been deported, I think some of the challenges that do arise are the language barriers. How do you provide these resources to the different communities? It's not just the Latino communities, the Asian communities.
Right.
The Assembly Democrats have launched the Know Your Rights campaign to help aid in that, to provide the resources. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yes, so again, being part of the legislature and being part of different caucuses, the Latino caucus being one of them, it makes me proud that our caucus is in the front line of making sure that resources like Know Your Rights is something that we're, putting out there to our communities to ensure that they have a, information, right? Because at the end of the day, we're a country of laws. We're a country of the fact that people have literally died and have fought for us to have laws. So we're a country that believes in that, and we have to empower a community that they have rights, that that there's a fear. I get the fear, but that there's rights, right? I mean, the fact that someone has a green card or maybe not a U.S. citizen yet, but they have some status in this country, but they're still fearful. That's just that's unfortunate.
And there's some that have been here for years.
Right.
20 years plus with families and grandchildren, and now they're in fear.
Exactly. But nowhere. It's our responsibility as leaders to promote that they have rights. And so, just this past Monday, I'm losing track of days now, but today's Tuesday, yesterday Monday, the legislature and the Assembly took bold action along with our colleagues in the State Senate and approving $25 million funding for immigration legal aid and services and another $25 million for Department of Justice Defense Fund. Why? Because we saw Trump 1.0 already. There was lawsuits after lawsuits. And I'm happy to report that that first cycle, California won 70% of those lawsuits that they helped fund through, again, the judicial system. And so this is not something that we didn't know that was going to come. So yes, we have an obligation and responsibility that California needs to lead and protect our community. We need to protect Californians specifically.
And then back to the topic of community, helping the community and providing those resources. Is your office in the future currently working on any possible town halls or any resource fairs or maybe even any pieces of legislation that you're currently working on or being a part of at this point right now?
Your question is actually very timely. Not only did our first bill address the unfortunate wildfires in LA. We introduced our first bill, last Monday, I believe it was. Again, I'm losing track of days and time, but it was last Monday. And today, this morning, we started the process of introducing legislation to help safeguard childcare spaces, places of worship, and medical facilities throughout the state of California. Because, again, a family should feel a safe haven, like we spoke about, place of worship, but not only that, but our child care centers and our hospitals. We want to make sure that, that we protect community. And so this will ensure that a 1 mile radius of protection zone where our state law enforcement agencies will not be able to assist with immigration enforcement. Okay. And I want to make sure that people know that we cannot control federal agencies to come to these facilities and to these locations. I know Senator Gonzalez, which I will be co-authoring at the Assembly level, her safe haven legislation and I'm calling it the safe haven, but I forgot her legislation name, but to protect students in schools throughout California. Ours will protect, hospitals, child care centers, and places of worship throughout the state of California.
Yeah, thank you. And then related to the legal immigration processes, I think that's one of the challenges that we hear a lot. In your opinion, what are your thoughts? Is it more the money side of things? Does it take too long for immigrants to become citizens? Is there not enough resources? Is there other government issues that makes this a bigger challenge, or kind of what's your take on that?
Speaking of very basic thought process here, I think me growing up in the state and this country, I've heard the thought process or the folks that want to criminalize or make our immigration system bad, if we would call it that. I've heard the comment, they need to get in line and go through a process. There is no line. I think first and foremost, our immigration system is broken in this country, right? I think since the Ronald Reagan days, there hasn't been a program, a system, a law, a program that has worked, right? Like the amnesty that President Reagan did at the time in the 80s. Well, there's no damn line for this process. There is no such thing. Yeah. Is there a process? Does it take months? No, it takes years to become a U.S. citizen. So while people are bringing fear into this conversation, there's actually a process. It takes years. It's not one day after another that people become U.S. citizens or a status in this country. So that being said, we do need to fix this. And by the way, this is not a Democrat or Republican. Both parties have failed at this, both parties. So as a Democrat, I will put blame that at the national level, we have not delivered for our immigrant community. And that being said, that it's not that easy, But I will tell you, both my parents, when they became U.S. citizens, it's a big day of celebration, And now the fact that someone's saying no more, that's just crazy, right? And we've been and we are. Let me highlight this. We're a country made of immigrants. And by the way, it's not just Mexicanos. It's Central Americans. It's Europeans. It's our Asian brothers and sisters, our South Asian brothers and sisters. It's throughout the world. It's not a one community. But unfortunately, we're targeted, right?
And it wasn't easy. It's a lot of hard work.
No, again, it's a lot of hard work.
All the sacrifice to get to this point. So being from California, we are lucky to be one of, if not the most diverse state in the United States. But on the political side of things, you as a leader, what are some of the challenges that you and your office face related to efforts to help immigrants with the new administration or just in general?
I want to first acknowledge that I come from a district where former member Marco Antonio Fireball was the assembly member, someone that helped push for AB 540, a law that gives our undocumented community, or students specifically, the opportunity to seek higher education. So I want to first acknowledge him because he is part of the reason why I think my journey to the state capitol He's someone that inspired me, someone that I will always, as I introduced today's bill, as I signed it, it reminded me of who Marco was to our district. I was on the school board. We named the school after him, Marco Antonio Fariba High School, which now I live 5 houses away from, which is just, again, full circle. But the part that I want to highlight about Marco's work there, then he was a part of a 6-year legislature, right? Some members only served 6 years. Mm-hmm. When he did this bill and it finally happened, because it didn't happen year one, it happened within his tenure of the legislature. I think of Marco in this exact moment. He fought for a community that was never going to vote for him. That's powerful. These students that he helped advocate for, and when I say never, not ever they would become U.S. citizens, ever in that 1-2 year left that he had in the legislature. Mm-hmm. So when this bill finally happened, maybe 2004, I'm losing track of time now, but when it happened, let's just say he had 2 years left in the legislature. But he had time left, and those students that benefited from this law were not going to vote for him. At being a champion for the voiceless. Yeah. At the time, voiceless, right? Because what if these students that had the higher education experience or opportunity became the future doctors, teachers, and attorneys, right? So I just wanted to highlight the fact that these laws, mm-hmm. And like AB 540 was a meaningful one that we always applaud and salute Marco for being the champion. But again, to me, it's that little part that he advocated for those members that we're not going to vote for him. And again, in the life of a politician, we look at our electorate, how are they going to feel about something? And so, yeah, he fought for the underrepresented community.
And it's been generations and a long time coming of different leaders for you fighting for the rights of immigrants. Do you feel like California is still a leader when it comes to immigrant rights at this point? Do you feel like the rest of the country could look west to California?
I think we have a saying in California that as California goes, so does the country, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's so true in so many other aspects besides our immigration or undocumented community or Latino community. There's things that we've led in climate change, we've led in other spaces. I mean, we're the 5th largest economy in the world, in the nation, in the world. So California has definitely led in so many spaces. And we need to continue being that beacon of hope for people, right? So while there's a national nightmare happening for some, we need to lead by example, and we need to lead to make sure that people have hope, people have something to look forward to. When people are feeling uninspired, feeling unmotivated, we need to be that sense of hope. And I think Californians have led for many years. And I'm just proud to be privileged to be part of this space now and hopefully continue California's effort to do good in troubling times.
And everyone needs help, to that point. One of the last questions I was going to ask is, in the next 4 years, is there anything specifically kind of like what are your personal hopes for California, and how would you like to see that evolve in the next 4 years?
Well, in 4 years, we will have a new president. For sure, because he can run for re-election. And that being said, there's opportunity for us to, and by the way, it's not that he's a Republican. I want to make sure that's clear. It's not the Republican part, because I think we could all say, okay, there's a difference in the administration. It's the individual.
It's him.
And things are coming out of his mouth, right? So anyway, that being said, in 4 years, we will have a new opportunity to elect a new leader that hopefully just brings some humanity to this country we call home. And I want to make sure that future Californians, future Texans, future Floridans, whatever part of this country you live in, that you feel as your leader is being that hope. And that being said, people in my district overwhelmingly are always in need of having that motivational leader. And so while that's happening, hopefully in 4 years, we're in a different place. But I hope that these next 4 years, California keeps leading and being the leader in these different situations where we need to show leadership.
Well, I think this is going to wrap up for the day. I wanted to thank you for your time. I appreciate all your hard work in helping move California forward, helping immigrants, all the support and the resources that you've been providing to your constituents. And congratulations again on your newly elected official. And hope to chat with you soon.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Let's continue being voices for our communities. And regardless of the time that we're in, we need to always be the voice. In good and bad times, right? And I think that's what we signed up for, to be in leadership roles, that we could be advocates for our communities. And I'm just proud to be here and privileged, and I take this responsibility seriously.
Thank you for your leadership.
Gracias.
I want to give a special thanks to Assemblymember Jose Luis Solache for talking with Look West. Now let's take a turn to Talita's discussion with Assemblymember Carrillo.
I'm Talita de Mesa. I'm with Look West, and I have here Assemblymember Juan Carrillo. He's joining us to talk about immigration routes and California's role in shaping immigration. I want to start off with your roots. Can you tell us a little about your family, your immigration, your story?
Absolutely. Just like many other typical immigrant stories, back in 1985, my father made the decision to come to the U.S. He came to California. He left mom and the kids. Me being the oldest of 7 at the time, I was 14 years old when my dad told us that he had made the decision to come to the U.S. in search of a better life. So he came over to California. He just had to do that to look for a brighter future for his family. Then my mom decided to come and join him 2 years later in 1987. And they left us with grandma. Again, 7 kids, me being the oldest. A year later, my dad asked if I wanted to come and join them. And it was really a difficult decision for me because it was just me coming to join him, but leaving the rest of my siblings with grandma. So my mom went back in 1988, and she brought me and my 2 little sisters at the time. They were 5 or 6. I was 14, and I was excited because I was going to come join my dad and my mom, but at the same time, leaving behind the rest of my siblings. So we came over in 88. And in 1989, my dad was able to go and get the rest of my siblings. So we were all united in California in 1989, and then we just started working hard as we immigrants do. We come here in search of a better life. In my case, hearing from my dad that he was going to leave to El Norte, as we say in Mexico, and then my mom, and then the rest of us. So we got reunited in 1989 in East LA. That's where we landed. Struggling, trying to get a job day by day, and at times even holding 2 jobs. My dad would work in construction during the day and at a restaurant at night. With me being 15, being the oldest, in our culture, we just have to support our parents, our siblings. So I worked full time, went to school at night. I ended up going to Garville High School in East LA. I remember walking to school 7 p.m., coming back 9:30, 10 p.m., and getting ready the next day to go to work. So that's what my history is like again, many other ones. And I'm really thankful that my dad made that decision for his family because it was with a purpose to get a better life for his family. For me, the purpose to support them. As I said, and as you know, in our culture, we start working really young, and it's what made us who we are today. And the immigrant dream became a reality. We were able to become citizens through the amnesty program from the 80s. Then President Ronald Reagan is the one that gave us that opportunity. So that's how we became first got a little green card. We had to renew it every year. Then became permanent residents, and then we qualified for citizenship. And so here we are today with a second administration that undermines the hard work that we immigrants do, the enormous contributions that we do to the 4th largest economy in California and to the United States in itself. So to me, it's very personal because I lived it. I lived Proposition 186, if you remember that. Been targeted in a classroom just because of the color of my skin. Students looking at me, and in fact, one of them even saying during class that she hoped that I was here legally, otherwise I wouldn't be able to be in college. And we also face those kind of discrimination and profiling. When I was going to community college to get my Bachelor of Arts in Architecture, I remember the professor just took me out of the middle of the class and took me to his office, not knowing what I did wrong or something with the assignment. And he just made a phone call without telling me anything. He was getting me a job in construction. He just said, here's, call this number, and he has a job for you. I'm here to get an education. I already have a job.
Yeah.
So it's just very personal for me. So again, this is very personal to me. And I think I said 186, but it was Proposition 187 in the early 90s, I believe. So.
Yeah. And actually, on that note, I wanted to talk about, because you talked about how immigrants we've contributed to a lot of the economy, especially in California. And it's really sad to see the hatred that immigrants get because of the contributions that we've given the state and really nationally. I wanted to talk about the many myths about immigration. We've heard immigrants are taking jobs from U.S. citizens, immigrants don't pay taxes. And I mean, like this, all of them are really, they're bad, they're awful. But I hate hearing immigrants are criminals, as if no, everyone else isn't. I want to know from your perspective and like what you've heard, your experience, like what the common myths are.
Yeah.
And also, what do you want people to understand about immigrants?
It's a really good point because we don't take anybody's job. In fact, we do the jobs that nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
Whether it be in the fields, the hospitality industry, the service industry, restaurants. I started as a dishwasher, in fact. When I came in 1988, my first job was a dishwasher. So those myths that we are here to take people's jobs, no, we were here to do the jobs that nobody else wants to do. Because we come here in search of the American dream, which is work hard in doing that. So those myths are just anger me to when I hear that, because we live those dreams. You've been an immigrant yourself, you've been an immigrant. We know what it's like to work not hard, but harder than those that are here without having to experience the things that we experience. So absolutely right. It's just those myths that make no sense. And again, we understand that because we live through it.
Yeah.
But those that they just don't see the hard work that we do and the contribution that we do to the other one, that we don't pay taxes, that we just take from the system. It's not true. I mean, I remember working in a job and I just wasn't able to do my income taxes because I didn't have a Social Security number.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop the governments, federal and state, to take the income tax that they wanted to take from my hard work. So that idea that we are taking also money from things that we don't contribute to is just another myth that is so unfair to our communities. I remember going to the stores and they don't ask me for my green card. I have to pay sales tax, and we just don't get anything back in our communities. It's another big myth that I wish that we could understand better. And those that make those allegations, they should know that we pay taxes. We're contributing to the economy of the state and the nation, as you mentioned. It's just time that we get things straight, and we don't get any more than what we deserve. We need to get recognized for the hard work, the contributions that we provide to the state and the nation, and it's time to make the record straight.
Absolutely. One thing that I've always wished for, that I wish that if you pay taxes, I wish that we could vote. Trying to becoming a citizen wouldn't limit you from doing those things. I believe that people who pay taxes, especially immigrants, deserve that right. And maybe you can work on that bill for California. I always wish for that. If that were possible, if immigrants can, with green cards and paying taxes, being able to vote, we probably wouldn't have this administration.
And there are steps that we can take in California. We can see what the state of New York has done. My understanding, there are some attempts, and I think that it was successful, for them to recognize that parents, for instance, in school districts, I have kids in school, and I, if whether documented or not, I think that I should have a voice on who represents my children at the school board, because it's my kids, and I have to have the right to have a voice on what I think the right way of choosing who represents us at the school boards are accountable to. They're accountable to all students, regardless of where their parents come from. So those little steps, maybe incremental steps like that, we may be able to do something like that. But it's not a bad idea to start that conversation again, because of what the federal administration is doing. They say they're going after criminals, but that's not true. Criminals are not at schools and churches and hospitals.
And that brings me to the next topic too. Is when this episode goes live, it will be 1 month since a new administration took office. What's been happening in your district?
Sure. What's been happening in my district is just like any other region in California. Fear, anger. The students, kids are also afraid because they listen to the news too. They look at social media. They hear what's happening, and kids are scared to go to school one day. And when they come out of school, they ask their parents, "What if you're not here when I get out of school?" So those are real concerns, real issues. But something that we're doing in our district is supporting our communities by letting them know that we're working on legislation, that we got their back. We started by doing Know Your Rights workshops in my district. We went even further than that. We also did a workshop on how to become a citizen. and also encouraging those that qualify now to be citizens to make it easier for them to do that. We sponsored that workshop, and we sponsored about 10 applications from our office, and with partnerships with local groups who are the ones doing the work. In my district, Salva is very active. We know the Dolores Huerta Foundation. We know Chirla, Maldev, a lot of those. And it was really encouraging to see that in just that one workshop that we did with a 4 or 5 day notice, we were able to get 21 people apply for citizenship. I think that that's a way that we should continue to encourage our communities. Those that are now eligible to become citizens, we should encourage them to do that. Part of the challenge is the cost of filing the application. To some people, $800 or whatever the cost is now may not seem like a lot of money, but for families struggling to pay the rent, put food on the table, put gas in their car to get to work, it's challenging. So what we did again, we partnered with other organizations, and we were able to sponsor 24 applications. That's just on one day. And I'm encouraging the rest of my colleagues to look for those avenues to make sure that we encourage our communities, our immigrant communities, regardless of where we come from. We come from all over the world. We're going to be facing the same challenges, whether we come from Mexico, Guatemala, Asia, anywhere, you name it, from all over the world. So one thing that we're doing even further than just Know Your Rights workshops is encouraging those to become citizens now that they're eligible to do that.
Yeah, you just answered my next question. Actually, that was very dear to me. I actually worked on the e-alert that went out to your constituents, or the campaign for the citizenship workshop. When I saw it, I really did get a little bit emotional, just because growing up, I came here from the Philippines with my parents, and I had no idea the struggle they were going through. It took us years to get citizenship. I was actually going to ask how the turnout was, and it's good to see that 24 applicants were able to do that process.
So again, I'm encouraging my colleagues to support our communities in that way, go beyond Know Your Rights, which are essential. But again, those that qualify now, make it easier for them to be able to go through that process. And you mentioned something really important too. Those little kids like yourself, not knowing what was going on, right? I was 14 at the time. I knew what was going on. But so many DACA students, TPS, all of those programs that allowed young children, now being here the entire life, it's just really very unfair that our federal administration doesn't even care. Sending us back to a place where we don't know makes it really unfair to the livelihoods of young kids like yourself. Not knowing where, your family background from the Philippines, what if you were to go back? Well, what are you going to do? It's really unfair to have that administration that don't value the investment in education at the national level, at the state level here in California, to support you to go to college. And then after that big investment in your education, I'm going to tell you, you have to go back. Back to where?
Like I've been contributing here, immigrants have been contributing here for so long, and to have that taken away from you, it's heartbreaking. Do you have any thoughts on how to make the legal process easier?
Well, we've been having a lot of conversation as the vice chair of the Latino Caucus, Southern California vice chair, and the Northern California vice chair, our chair, Lina Gonzalez, and the caucus all together. We've been looking at what has been done in the past for legislation that is related to immigration. Unfortunately, we're learning that some of that legislation has not been enacted yet for whatever reason. So the conversations that we had right after the election results in November was to look at what's been done in the past, if it's been implemented, if it hasn't, why has it not been implemented, and also looking at what we're going to be doing this year in legislation towards immigration. There's been great conversations. Our chair, Lina Gonzalez, has a bill that would keep ICE out of schools. Assemblymember Mersushi has a similar bill. We are thinking in our office to at least work on 3 different bills that are related to immigration. One of them, working with other members again from the Latino Caucus, an idea is to file a bill that would keep ICE out of California highways. And we realize how difficult that is going to be. because we know that they're not playing by the rules. Even what they're saying is not true. But those are things that, to me, those not only show moral support to our communities, but actually fighting for those policies that the federal administration is doing. Keeping ICE out of hospitals, even out of businesses. We had conversation with the Chambers of Commerce leadership so that business owners are able to notify their employees when they know that there's some activity going around in the surrounding area, and have them know that their employees have rights as well. Don't let ICE come into their businesses. Educate, again, their employees about their rights, but at the same time make employers also participate in our efforts to keep ICE out of the schools, hospital, churches, businesses, the market, all of those places where we know that they're going to be attacking our communities.
Yeah, I mean, it's really scary because they're really going for anything public now. I wanted to know, I know you just talked about, challenges of just being out there, being an immigrant. I want to know, in the legislature, I know you work on policies. Have there been any challenges with creating new policies or strengthening policy for immigrants?
The challenge of previous legislation, SB 54, we're familiar with that, took effect a few years ago under different leadership. The challenges that we're facing is, again, we're going to have to sue the federal administration for what they're trying to do, undo state constitutional rights through SB 54. Those driver license, for instance, for undocumented people. And that, to me, shows continued support from California to our immigrant communities, because we want them to thrive. We know that thriving families, Californian families, translates to a thriving state, and it translates to a thriving nation, the United States. Those challenges are going to go to the courts, unfortunately. And as you're familiar, we just passed a $50 million two bills to go towards those efforts. But we're going to have to continue to do that. Whatever long it takes and whatever it takes, we're going to fight the administration. And we already have experience, unfortunately, in 2016 on the first administration. And now we already know what to expect. I mean, they told us what they were going to do. They're doing it, and we're ready to fight back.
It's unhinged. I would have to, that's the best way to put this new administration. I know you also touched on what you have been doing in your district. Are there any other things that you look forward to regarding helping immigrants?
In my district, there's a detention center in the city of Adelanto. There's a nice detention center, and I actually visited the center before the administration took place. And one thing that we also have to be mindful is on the conditions that they put people in there. We've heard on human conditions, like there is no electricity, there is no water. And that's something that really concerns me. And I'm planning on making a visit there with other legislators that are willing to do that, just so that we can see the conditions, the inhumane conditions that they put our immigrant communities in. And again, going back to everybody's rights. Just because we are whatever they want to call us, we do have the right to live in safe conditions, whatever they want to put us in. So that's one of the things that we're going to be doing in my district because of that ICE detention facility in Adelanto.
I wanted to ask you, California has done so much, not only for this state, but like you've mentioned, in the nation. Do you believe that California is a leader when it comes to immigrant rights? And do you believe that the country can look our way, look west, to California for leadership on immigration issues?
Absolutely. California has a long-standing history of being supportive to immigrants. The leadership that California shows towards the nation and towards the world, too. We're leaders in so many different aspects. The policies that California has enacted on supporting our immigrant community should be an example to the rest of the world. No, absolutely. I mean, California has been the leader in so many different aspects. Immigration not being the only one. Environmental laws, again, the economy. So I do believe that other states within the nation should look west, as you put it, because California continues to be the leader in so many different areas. Immigration is one of those because, as you know, California policies have been supportive of our migrant communities.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask too, under this administration and your term, for as long as you want to serve. We love you. We love you being an assembly member. I wanted to know what changes or improvements do you hope to see for the well-being of immigrant families and really all of California?
Again, going back to California being a leader in so many different aspects, we're also a leader in safety net programs. That is something that I do believe we should continue to provide to our residents throughout the states, those that depend on their livelihood on those safety net programs. But at the same time, I think that we should do even more. As I mentioned before, to me, encouraging those to become citizens is a big step in continuing to have democracy that we enjoy in California and the nation. And so to me, continue to have those safety net programs, but again, provide a better education system, provide a better quality of life. Affordability has been a big issue, as you know, big part of the discussion that we're having in the legislature on both houses. So making it easier for young kids like you to be able to afford a home. That's another thing that concerns me because I do have 2 older kids who are struggling to pay the rent. And they do feel that they may not ever be able to achieve the American dream. Mm-hmm. Those are things that I work hard on, and a lot of my colleagues do, if not all of us. But those are things that intentionally we have to have legislation to make the California dream available for all. There's a lot of stories where young kids that go through college, they get their degree, and they can afford to pay a house with 2 incomes. So those are things that are very concerning. Obviously, the environment makes a big part too. We need to continue to support the environment that we live in, leave a better place for our children. But affordability, utilities, housing, transportation, all of those things that make it difficult to live in California. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, we still live in the best state in the United States.
That's beautiful. That's all the question I have. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Big thanks to Assemblymember Carrillo for being on this episode of Look West. We will have more episodes on this topic in the weeks and months ahead. For Armando Jimenez, I'm Talitha de Mesa. Thank you for listening to Look West.
The Look West podcast is produced by the DCO Pod Squad for the California Assembly Democrats. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode. When you think of Californian politics, remember to look west.